one of the big differences in looking at Oakland is when we looked at Reno and we looked at Sacramento, there was a lot of talk about the sort of, let's talk a little bit more traditional innovation venture capital based companies. And I think in Oakland, it seemed with ESO Ventures, there was a much bigger focus on sort of retail entrepreneurship, the smaller scale. And what I thought was really fascinating is how ESO Ventures is trying to solve a for-profit investment business model centered around smaller businesses. And I think there's a real, maybe there's a tension and there's a challenge that exists there.
We believe that anyone, anywhere can make startups. After spending more than a decade building our own company, we've learned a ton. We've mentored founders and built startup communities. We've helped craft government policies, and we've also invested in businesses, some that succeeded and some that didn't. We've helped thousands of startup founders, funders, and facilitators. We're inspired by their dreams and determination. Our goal is to travel across America and meet as many as we can, tell their story, and share their lessons. We're on a mission to help you succeed, to show you that you aren't crazy, you aren't alone, you really can do this. We're here to make startups together.
How did ESO Ventures play a role in this?
ESO Ventures played a huge role. Before we opened this brick and mortar space, they had a cohort where it was full of about 20 of us entrepreneurs, and we're all at different stages. Okay. I was about to open this space here, so it was like really good timing to be with other entrepreneurs and just get all of that energy and, you know, folks just ready, because it's no small thing to open a brick and mortar.
No, it's not. Okay.
Just being around other entrepreneurs and going through their cohort and learning, just getting in the mode of like what it's going to feel like to be an entrepreneur 24/7. Like, not do this part-time like I was kind of doing it before.
You're all in now.
I'm all in.
Okay.
So, that was great. ESO was part of that. And then just recently, they actually did a moonshot like loan opportunity for about 10 of us that went through the cohort, and I was part of that.
Okay.
And so provided funding, which
that's a game changer.
Yeah, game changer.
Totally.
Because it's one thing to do a cohort, but it's another thing to like offer funding and back that up with like, okay, we believe in you. We're going to loan you some money. You know what I mean? And so ESO did that, and it's been so helpful. So that was about a year in.
And tell me, what do you think in the big scheme of entrepreneurship? What's the Oakland ecosystem like for somebody?
I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out here, you know, and I think we all kind of really support each other. We know each other too. I think even if folks have a regular day-to-day job, they also have something on the side that they're working on or that they're doing. I mean, Oakland is a city of entrepreneurs for sure. We're out here independently doing our own thing. I mean, that's where I kind of really learned it. As a DJ, I was an entrepreneur too, technically. I ran my own DJ business, you know, collected money and invoiced, did the whole thing, dealt with customers. And so in the music business here in the Bay Area is also big in terms of independence. So like from music to bakeries to anything, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out here. And I think we support each other pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the hardest thing that you discovered about being an entrepreneur?
I think really trying to juggle all the tasks and not become the person that does all of them.
Okay.
You cannot do everything as an entrepreneur. You think you can, you think you want to do it, just because you're the owner and you should do it.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh. You will run yourself into the ground. And I learned that more once we moved into the brick and mortar. Before then, you know, not so much, and that's because we weren't doing the production in-house. But now we really do everything in here. And so there's just more to learn. And as an entrepreneur in the past couple of years, I definitely have learned that like you just can't do everything. You have to get other people to help you. You have to have a team. We have a great team. Mark's there. Our printer just left. You know, we have a staff of about 5 and sometimes 7 to run this place.
Okay.
So yeah, you can't do everything yourself. Get a team, farm things out, you know, as much as you can.
Well, my name is Marta Hernandez. I'm one of the co-founders of ESO Ventures. How I landed this amazing opportunity is I'm an entrepreneur myself. Began my first company, Made Boss, doing HR support services, and realized that typically small to growing organizations needed support, but they couldn't afford HR. And so we developed a solution to make sure that they had strategic alignment in essence, really supporting their employee base so that they could retain and grow within the organization. From that, as I'm pitching and even developing software for a career pathing app, I came across Alfredo, who is now also a co-founder of ESO Ventures. I saw him do a presentation. He saw me pitching, but we never really connected. Until later, and realized that we knew each other and admired each other's work. So the opportunity came about with the city of Oakland, specifically looking at East Oakland, this particular zip code, and expanding opportunity for entrepreneurship and developing sort of a corridor where there could be more access to entrepreneurship for Black and Brown founders. And so, as you know, obviously business is a core dynamic of community growth and ecosystem building. And for us, what's most important is access to generational wealth. And so with that premise, we began what was a very simple, at the time, pitch competition. And then our third founder also came into the play, which is Ben Wanzo, also an entrepreneur from Oakland. He had the business credentials, Stanford MBA, etc., you name it. We all had entrepreneurship experience and background, and we were all passionate about closing the wealth gap through entrepreneurship. So that's how it began, and it's now evolved to something that I'm very proud of. Essentially graduating over 300 entrepreneurs through our incubator, deploying almost $2 million last year. After we wrote legislation, got a very significant investment from the state of California to make entrepreneurship accessible and worthwhile for Black and Brown founders. So that's why I'm in what I do.
That's awesome. And remind me again, when did you guys kind of start?
So we came together informally, and I say informally because it was sort of a passion project back in 2019. And we didn't formalize the company until 2021.
Great. So you guys have come a long way in just a couple of short years.
Very, very long.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So what do you think has been the secret to being able to get the organization moving as fast as you have? Because we see organizations around the country and they're at it for years, and sometimes they're just getting to the stage where they're making the impacts that you're making 2 years.
I think that was surprising to us. It wasn't until we did a close sort of like look into the landscape and what are other ESOs doing, especially locally, and we realized, oh my God, like the amount that has been deployed and also the number of deployments. We have about close to 40 entrepreneurs, $2 million within really 8 months, since we barely got our lender's license last year. And we realized that I think the piece that's a little bit different is that we are a for-profit. So there is a little bit of fire in the belly of like making sure that we have skin in the game in the success of entrepreneurs and success of all the programming that we do.
I mean, do you think that another question. Do you think you can describe, is there a difference that you would say in Oakland before ESO Ventures and now with ESO Ventures?
I think we need to do a better job at measuring the impact. What I can say is that the before and the after, and I can see it, from my personal perspective, right? Like I am a small big impact within the city of Oakland,
Okay.
like just personally.
Yeah.
Where before ESO Ventures, living in survival, trying to figure out how to, build, grow, and develop a company. And then you put that in perspective and replicating that within the entrepreneurs that we have worked with, and we see hope. We see the opportunity of building something and having an ecosystem that actually supports you and that is tangible. It's not a promise, right? Like, oh, if you come to this program, like, we'll help you get there. No, like, we're seeing day to day people, like individuals that essentially have not had opportunity to be in a community where they can see themselves represented. And so another thing that I think is important to differentiate about Oakland and about who we are within the ecosystem is that you see Ben, Alfredo, and myself, like, we represent the people that we work with. Right. So they see the example of what it could be, and that together we can, right? So it's that resilience, it's that like, I don't know, it's that hunger to really succeed, to be better, to support people in building their businesses, because it can be possible. Like, we've seen it done. Why not us?
Do you find that Oakland, because you are from here and you live here and now you're training this, what would you say is the landscape for entrepreneurs? Is it the kind of place that you think is encouraging for it? Do you think that the city and the public and the private partnerships are actually pro entrepreneurship? I mean, I know you're in the Bay Area, you're in Silicon Valley, so I know there's probably a kind of another lens that you look at your community through.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is just looking at the Silicon Valley example, like, most of the entrepreneurs we work with, like, I even personally, I don't see it accessible.
I see.
Specifically because it's tech sector, it's high growth, it's very focused on unicorn models.
Okay.
The entrepreneurs we work with, the businesses we work with, are micro enterprises making under 100,000 a year. So the hustle to be able to survive on a day-by-day basis is not necessarily something that big-time investors, right, from those backgrounds are interested in. In fact, they don't see it as a viable investment. So on a constant basis, we're fighting that perspective.
Okay.
I see the landscape that Oakland has sort of in this ecosystem of resiliency. Right now, the city is going through a lot. There's a lot of crime. Obviously, we just went through transition with a new mayor. City council is working really hard to fight some of those infrastructure issues and like traditional perspectives that keep the city from taking really big steps into solutions that address the reason why businesses leave the city in the first place, right? Which is crime. So having an opportunity for people from Oakland who are not afraid of Oakland, I think is truly a big solution to some of the issues that we have right now.
That's a good point.
So that collectively we can access and like demand some of the solutions that we need from our government.
I think you make an interesting point about how Silicon Valley is kind of focused on the unicorns, the big tech plays, and so forth. And within a lot of communities, as the entrepreneur support organizations are trying to get an investor community engaged, it seems like the question that often comes up is like, okay, well, what's your big company that you've had? And I think we all know in this space that the vast majority of what we do is businesses between 1 and 10 employees at the end of the day. And so you are a for-profit, you are investing in companies. How are you able to make money investing in small businesses?
Yeah, we're actually in the process of figuring out essentially what the revenue generating activity is going to be, right? So we're at an advantage that we had an investment from the state of California, which has given us runway to really figure things out. And now we're in the sort of like phase 2, I would call it, right? Okay. Phase 2 of identifying 2.0. What are those, ESO 2.0, identifying the behaviors that are going to get us to that point of equilibrium where we can say, we figured it out, right? We now can make money and can steady grow to be able to serve and then make the solution available in other communities. So when I think about growth and revenue generating and thinking about like nonprofit versus for profit, there's one common denominator, and that's sustainability. Right? So why do you want to be sustainable? There must be a purpose for that. So at ESO, we've defined that our success stands on profit because we're a business. So we have to make sure that we have a viable model to incentivize our performance. And then the second is purpose, which is making entrepreneurship accessible and worthwhile, because that's the biggest piece, right? Anyone can be an entrepreneur, but does it make sense to the bottom line in your bank account, your mental health? So worthwhile in every community. And last is people. Every individual that is a part of our ecosystem, to individuals who become team members, right? Like they are employed by the entity, that have a stake in making sure that we meet those three things.
Yeah. Do you ever think that maybe some of the entrepreneurs you serve could be venture backed at some point?
Oh, of course.
Like some secret sauce coming through the pipeline?
Or? Yeah, 100%. We have incredible talent. Okay. And through our curriculum, because we have sort of like the 3 C's, right? Which is competence, confidence, and capital. Okay. The competence piece is just learning the basics, right? Do you know how to use your QuickBooks? Do you understand your financials? Do you understand the necessity in relation to marketing? Who's your market fit? To the confidence, which is you can and you will. Yeah. And that from the I can to the I will takes a bit of time. And it's really re-emphasizing that, you have what it takes to become an entrepreneur, and constantly reassessing, is this the right journey for me? Yeah. Because it's a really hard journey. Yeah. And it requires an entire community and ecosystem for us to be successful. So I would say that because we are right now agnostic, and anyone that it has a viable business that's operational can go through our incubator, our goal is to get to a place where we can identify and learn from what we have been doing, right? Like all of it becomes data, and say, we figured something out here. Yeah. Now we know that this type of business, returns this, and that this type of business becomes venture backed, and that this. So I think we're so early in the process to say, hey, we figured it out. Yeah. But what I can say is that many of the businesses that we work with have potential for growth, and whether they're venture backed, like our piece is capital, is like access to capital, not necessarily venture. Yeah. It could be lending from a bank, right? Like it could be access to that type of capital. It could be angel investors. There's just so many opportunities to access capital, but we just haven't been one in those circles where like we learn how to do it. Yeah. And I think it's in a part of the curriculum in the incubator is focusing really on access to capital. Like I can fundraise, and like really showing people how to do that. And all that.
In the learning of the cohort, like it sounds like you went through something with ESO Ventures. So, like one of the things we find is, when you ask like, who's your customer? Are you really going to say like, everybody's my customer? Or are you really going to learn, so what are some of the things that you kind of learned in these kind of cohort kind of stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that they encourage is that you find your niche. Like ours is nonprofit organizations and schools. Okay. And then after that, it's small businesses. So those are our top 3. Okay. So we know if one of those walks through the door, that's who we want to talk to. That's who we know is going to usually come back. Yeah. At least once or twice a year. Yeah. So, but that was something we had to learn. You do kind of want to take in everybody at first just to see where you are. Yeah. Because sometimes you don't know. Yeah. But ESO definitely, encourages for you to like really pare down who is your target audience, who's your customer, so you can really serve them. And that's where you'll win. Because like I said with your other question, you can't do everything for everybody. Yeah. Really focusing in. So this year we actually just implemented 10% for nonprofits and schools when they order with us. So that's a nice perk. Yeah, absolutely. There are our niche customers, so offer them a little something. Yeah. Yeah, they're happy.
Yeah.
We sent out the email. We got some great feedback. It was
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are you going to be in 5 or 10 years?
Woo! I don't know.
Do you see your
Yeah.
like the magic wand of like, you know, your business goes viral and all of a sudden, you know, you got more customers you know what to do with, or
Absolutely.
you want to diversify.
We're going viral, baby. If that happens or if it doesn't, but in 5 to 10 years, we've definitely expanded to other marketing services. Like I was saying before, we've added back video as a marketing service.
Okay.
We also used to do social media marketing for folks as a service, but social media marketing takes there's so much to learn in terms of social media, and it changes every year.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago when we were doing social media marketing, TikTok didn't even exist.
Right.
But now it does. So it's a fast-paced, thing.
Okay.
But hopefully maybe we might have enough staff to be able to do that in 5 to 10 years. But yeah, anything that falls underneath marketing that we want to do, we hopefully will have expanded to it.
Yeah.
To add different services.
Yeah.
Not just a print shop.
No, that's awesome. We print T-shirts. Cha-ching.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yes.
We even have the tattoo to prove it. Look, Harrison.
Brand new.
Brand new.
Hopefully it's not ash.
Company tattoo. Okay. Marketing services.
Yes.
Screen printing, embroidery, graphic design, video.
And video is as an aside right now.
We're women owned.
Women owned, black owned, we here.
We're
the
here.
Olive Street Agency. Follow us on Instagram and the olivestreetagency.com. That's our website.
Awesome.
Get in touch.
And you ship?
And we ship.
See?
Yeah.
So one of the main reasons we wanted to go on this ecosystem tour was to try to find something that each community has done that's unique, that we can serve as a knowledge share to help every community. And to be honest, when Grace said we were going to get the chance to meet with you for this, I was immediately really excited because what you've been able to do with the state of California, and I'm sure there's some other things, but like that one in particular, I'm really curious how you pulled that off.
Yeah. It's I believe that when you truly want something, like the universe conspires for you to get it done, right? And so we knew that in order to make entrepreneurship accessible, there needed to be the 3C, and we were missing that one, which was capital. Mm-hmm. So we were trying to figure out ways in which we could support people who either had business ideas or they were working on their business, but they were barely surviving. And I was an example of that many years ago, right? Where I gave up my job and I was in the verge of losing my home, but I still had this big dream, and you almost become like a fanatic of this like one dream that you forget all the other pieces that make life possible. Yeah. And so knowing that when you're all in, there's so many things that sort of fall through the cracks and could impact people. For example, healthcare, not having the access to pay for, over time, it becomes a problem, right? And so we wanted to ensure that for those who were brave enough, for those who were already doing the thing, that we could create that infrastructure to have that safety. Mm-hmm. And we thought, what about workforce development dollars? What if instead of, training programs, you can work for someone, you can get the money so you can work for yourself. Yeah. Okay, that's an idea. What about, and so we started thinking about all these things. And one of our advisors said, I was working with this other organization and they wrote this legislation and the government, and we're like, okay, you guys should write legislation because what you're talking is a human right. Yeah. We're like, yes, we should. So we began with a template and began writing. And by then we already had some results. By then we had already, I want to say 2 to 3 incubators under our belt. We had, we could show the impact of 10 weeks in businesses or individuals who were working and like trying to work on their business or had been working on their business for 3 years and no results. And then one, incubator later, 10 weeks of focus, they're able to leave the job and now they're making enough to like sustain themselves in their business. And it's like mind blowing. Like we could do that, right? And so we had the results. So now we could tell the story. And that's exactly what we did. good news is that we have a lot of friends. And so one of my mentors used to be an assembly member. In fact, ran the assembly, and all it took was a phone conversation and him reading the legislation and saying, oh my God, you have something here.
Yeah.
And I think this is the right time, because it was mid-pandemic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone was starting a business. So I think I want to say, like, combined the passion, the results of what we were doing, the fact that it was the right timing, and then having the right people supporting and seeing our work turned to be kind of like those things, like right time at the right place.
Sounds like it's good to remember that even if someone's no longer in office, they might still have influence.
Oh my God, it's amazing, right? And it doesn't help if they're like actually, pro lobby, like they know how to lobby. So that was definitely helpful.
I'd love to do a little brief exercise with you.
Mm-hmm.
You just trust us. Close your eyes.
Yeah.
And I want you to think about Oakland, the ecosystem. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes and say 3 words that best describe the Oakland ecosystem.
The first one is brave.
Right.
We just gotta freaking do it. The second one is vibrant. And I want to say the third is sort of a combination between culturally rich. Yeah.
Okay. What would success look like for you and your organization in, let's say, 5 years?
Oh, 5 years.
Yeah.
We've figured out how to make entrepreneurship accessible and worthwhile in a way that can be replicated. And we're now in, 5, 6 states, providing confidence, competence, and capital to every entrepreneur that represents, could be every entrepreneur in the Black and Brown community or in communities that are underrepresented.
Okay.
So Oakland is just the start.
Oakland is just a start.
You're actually already beyond the borders of Oakland.
That is correct. We're Bay Area wide, and we're expanding throughout the state this year.
Okay.
Got it. Kind of actually really curious, because basically you said you had a $2 million investment from California, and if you don't have this information, that's fine.
It's actually 18 million
18
from the
million,
state.
okay.
Yeah.
And, I guess where I was getting at is I was curious if you are able to equate how many jobs that creates because of the multiplying effect of entrepreneurship, and if you don't have that, really just how are you measuring success?
Yeah. So within the incubation process, and start incubator all the way to the fund, we actually define success as a business or an entrepreneur who now has created an entity where they can pay themselves and they can hire another person. They can make over 100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So those are like the 3 things that we focus on in relation to measuring success. We're very early on to be able to say, oh, we've done that within 1 year, because we just began our fund, right? So what I can say for those that we've invested in, which is 38 different companies, is that every entrepreneur is now paying themselves. So hey, we've defined that, yes, we've done that successfully. Yeah. And now really is about, we just hired a few months ago a data and storytelling a person that can help us now bring back some of the stories, right, of those who have gone through our incubator and also receiving capital, so that we can start tracking and really understanding what the impact is. But anecdotally, I can say for those that have gone and now, reach out to us and say, like, thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for being there with me. Like, we see individuals that, were homestay moms and began doing something with the product, and the product is doing so well that they purchased a home, and now their entire garage is where they manufacture the product. Like, that's mind-blowing, right? Mm-hmm. So from like those little stories to now seeing the aggregate to say, next time we have this conversation and we're sitting down, I want to make very like big statements to say, like, oh yeah, 50% of everyone that has gone through the incubator has done this, and 90%, and yeah. So unfortunately we're not there yet. We're so early in the process. Yeah. But fortunately we're in a place where now we've created the infrastructure and the systems to be able to do that faster. and better.
Well, outside of the construct of this interview, I'd love to stay in touch on that because I do a lot of work in trying to track data around jobs and entrepreneurship, and basically we've found that the cost. So typically speaking, in workforce development, which is one of the main policy areas where we focus, given the success rates in normal employment skills training, the amount of jobs created per dollar spent through entrepreneurship is just like exponentially greater than it is in any other path. And we've been able to make some strides on workforce legislation as a byproduct of that. And so knowing the focus that you have in this similar arena of what you're tracking, I think it'd be great to figure out how we
Would love that. Yes.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our California Roadshow.
Okay, so we have now finished the first leg of our ecosystem tour. We did Oakland. So what did you think about Oakland?
I thought Oakland was great. You know, I didn't spend a lot of time there growing up, even though I was in California for a while as a child. And what I found was the community that we met with yesterday was pretty passionate about their town. And I appreciated the resilience that they had, knowing that there's some obstacles that they're overcoming for their entrepreneurs. And I have great respect for those that are doing the work in Oakland.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences in looking at Oakland is when we looked at Reno and we looked at Sacramento, there was a lot of talk about the sort of, let's talk a little bit more traditional innovation venture capital based companies. And I think in Oakland, it seemed with ESO Ventures, there was a much bigger focus on sort of retail entrepreneurship, the smaller scale. And what I thought was really fascinating is how ESO Ventures is trying to solve a for-profit investment business model centered around smaller businesses. And I think there's a tension and there's a challenge that exists there.
Yeah, and I think too that, you know, entrepreneurship, when you think about the mom and pop shops and the Main Street shops and the ones that are really wanting to provide for themselves and their family, they could scale. They could take venture capital, but right now, ESO Ventures benefited them in the way that they had connections, they had mentorship, they had access to capital. So it really was a great success story, full cycle. Founder coming in, getting some training, getting access to some resources, and then getting a bricks and mortar, employing people in their communities. That is the kind of story that we want to tell. That is the kind of story that we want to share across the country.
Right. I think that most of the time, that when we talk to people in economic development, they are always asking, you know, what are the big companies that are created as a byproduct? But I think that what is often overlooked is the cumulative effect of supporting hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs that are creating between 1 and 10 jobs in their community, and how that really adds up to the same, if not even greater impact, because there's so much resiliency centered around broad-based entrepreneurship as opposed to, you know, individual companies that scale into unicorns.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we found too was this idea that even if we're highlighting local organizations and local companies and local founders, the ripple effect of what they're doing is pretty phenomenal. I mean, with this particular founder, I mean, she has an agency, she has a bricks and mortar, she has a product, but then she also has services. And so her client base could expand beyond Oakland, which is really encouraging because, again, that's sort of the full cycle of like, what does it mean to start a business and then scale it in terms of either your zip code or your geography or your technology or industry.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that we focus a lot on at Make Startups is the policy work, and I'm curious, you know, if there's anything that maybe you learned on the policy side from all of ESO Ventures' success.
Well, I think so many things are about the relationships that people have. I think that the way in which people move through their careers, you want to stay in touch with those people that have served in the public office. You want to imagine what does it look like in terms of like how policies are made. At the end of the day, these are human beings trying to improve the world, and so our politicians, you know, for whatever it's worth, at the local, state, and federal level, like they're trying to do good. They're trying to move money around so that their economies can be better. And I think that ESO Ventures is a great example of how they're able to navigate that and unlock resources for their community so that those dollars stay in Oakland.
Yeah, it's kind of like the audacity of writing a law yourself. I was just impressed with that because I know even in the work that we did, we focused a lot on writing policy papers and maybe making specific sections for, if you change this one sentence here or this one sentence there, it can make a real difference. And that got us to the point where we had policymakers asking us to help on working on these drafts. But to take that step initially and to know how to use your network so that you can get that in front of government, I think that's something that every entrepreneur support organizer should think about, is how can you use your connections and your expertise to move the needle in a policy space.
Yeah, and on top of that, you know, as private citizens, our civic duty is to participate in how these things are done. And I think it's a testament to, you know, our founding fathers and what people that want to go into politics look like, because there's a lot of good people that are really trying to help the world. And I know that we don't always see it that way. And this is another good example of how do you unlock resources so that you can elevate those in your community in terms of like job creation and prosperity.
Yeah, so we've finished our Northern California and Nevada arc. Are you ready to go to the Southeast?
We have lots of cities planned this year, so I think that is our next iteration. And as long as the weather cooperates, I'm good.
Yeah, so if you'd like us to come to your city, leave a comment, reach out to us on email. I'm sure you can find us online, but we'd love to visit your city. And we've got a whole year of doing this. We visited 3 out of 24 cities, so there's a lot to come.
Thank you. Make startups.